Hello everybody and welcome to Electric City Sentai Denzicaster, your somewhat regularly scheduled video cast about the wonderful world of Tokusatsu. And this week we are going a little Toku adjacent once again. That's right, it is time for another Mike and Cana movie night. And this week, if you watched our Pacific Rim episode, you already know what we're watching tonight. And that is V for Vendetta. There you go, folks. V for Vendetta is the Wachowski brothers flick. It's the adaptation of the Alan Moore and I believe it's David Lloyd, unless I'm horribly mistaken. Yes, graphic novel. Originally started in 1982 as part of the UK comic anthology series Warrior, and then eventually released as a graphic novel, both in installments and then as a single piece by DC Comics under the Vertigo imprint. This flick has some marked differences from the graphic novel, which frankly I haven't read, and neither has my wife, so we probably won't address too many of those in this discussion, but we'll just say that there were enough that if you've never read the graphic novel and all you ever watch is the movie, you'd never know that Alan Moore had a thing to do with that story, because he apparently didn't want his name on it. Only David Lloyd's name appears. Alan Moore apparently did not approve of the treatment of his novel, but David Lloyd, who helped with the story and was the illustrator, the co-author, so to speak, praised the movie, and he liked it just fine. So the question is, my wife, who loves this movie, and I, who have never seen this movie, are going to sit down, take a look, and, well, what am I going to think of V for Vendetta? I pretty much already know what my wife thinks of it. So, with that in mind, stick around, folks. We're going to pay some bills, and Electric City Sentai Denzicaster will be right back talking about V for Vendetta. Okay, everybody, we are back. It is myself and my beautiful wife, Cana, and we have just got done watching V for Vendetta, starring Hugo Weaving and Natalie Portman. More Natalie Portman than Hugo Weaving, truth be told. And then a few people that,
John Hurt.
John Hurt, who plays basically our major bad guy.
Stephen Fry.
Stephen Fry's in it. They rated the BBC's...
12 actors. They only have 12, and...
Surprised David Tennant's not in it.
He could be in, the big mass of people.
Well, you never know.
Well, I mean, Natalie Portman's American, so, I mean, they didn't use absolutely everyone from, the BBC, but...
No, they did not. I will say, Hugo Weaving's performance I enjoyed a great deal. I thought it was very interesting, the idea of never showing his face. Now, as I understand, they never did it really in the graphic novel either. I mean, a big part of it is he's... So I think supposed to be nameless, faceless. He's identified just by the letter V. So,
but that's a good point, because when you're acting with a mask, it's hard to portray an emotion a lot of times. Right. I mean, especially when it's a full-on mask.
Right.
But I think Hugo Weaving did an awesome job on it, just because even though he's wearing the Guy Fawkes mask, which has, this kind of mischievous smile on it. Right. Even when he sounds threatening, the mask kind of looks threatening. He does a really good job about that.
To give an idea, Hugo Weaving, by the way, genre fans out there will recognize the names. Of course, Natalie Portman was Queen Princess, then Queen, then Senator Amidala, if you go through the various movies of the Star Wars prequels, which maybe we'll talk about one day. They're not all garbage. Really? They're not all terrible. None of them are good, but they're not all terrible.
I'm an originals fan. I don't know about that. I don't know. You might.
But you like Force Awakens.
Yeah, I do, surprisingly. I was kind of shocked by that. But I don't like the prequels.
But yeah, Stormtrooper can use a lightsaber, folks. Who knew? But we'll talk about that one later. Then you've got, obviously Natalie Portman, then Hugo Weaving, of course, from Lord of the Rings, also was in the Hobbit trilogy at one point, and of course, the Red Skull, for those Marvel fans. He's actually one of those rare actors who has played a character in both DC and Marvel cinema. So, kind of an elite club there, I suppose. The The basic story of V for Vendetta. This is one of your favorite movies. You talk about the story.
Okay. So the basic story is, it's a dystopian, for lack of a better term. I read a lot of books, and I like the dystopian novels. So, it's dystopian. Great Britain has locked itself down, and it is kind of more of a...
Police state would be a really good word.
A police state based a lot on religion, because their big theme is faith through unity, unity through faith. So if you are homosexual, if you have any deviant behaviors, anything that, would be considered very anti-religious, you are going to be persecuted and probably black-bagged.
Which is their term in the film, where basically...
they put a black bag over your head and you're gone.
Yeah, the Gestapo shows up, puts a black bag over your head and drags you off. They use the phrase unity through faith, etc., etc. I got some severe Nazi overtones in this movie. It's fascism at its best in this flick. John Hurt does the world's best British Hitler impersonation for most of the movie.
But that's kind of the point.
Right.
The best forms of persuading people is using their ultimate faith, which most people gain their hope from, to scare them into doing what they would not normally agree to do.
Yeah, and you basically wind up with a character in, and I forget the High Chancellor's name in this. We just watched it. Sutler.
I got this.
Good. One of us needs to. Usually I'm the guy on this show who has to remember all the names.
But this is my movie, so I have to.
Yes. The High Chancellor is definitely one of those, you fear what is different, prey on that fear to gain power. And that's very much central to... they only use the term Norsefier once in the entire movie. As I understand, that shows up more in the graphic novel. That's the party that they are part of. They use that, and it's very much, like I said, very fascist Nazi-style overtones. What was our black bagger's name again? Cutler? Or Cutter? Or what's
Creedy.
Creedy. Creedy.
I got this!
That's why I look to you. Creedy, very much like the head of the Gestapo.
Right.
But we wind up with the several characters. We wind up with the one honest cop who has Inspector Lestrade for a partner.
Well, of course he's going to have Inspector Lestrade. I mean, let's be honest. And it's when he has, not gray hair, which I keep forgetting. This movie was made in 2006. Mm-hmm. And
it's 10 years old.
It is 10 years old this year. And I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, they look like babies.
You know what just dawned on me? So we have Inspector Lestrade. I apologize in advance. I'm a horrible Sherlock fan. I don't remember the actor's name. We have Inspector Lestrade. Well, your phone's right there. You can look it up.
Yeah, no,
We have Inspector Lestrade from the BBC Sherlock.
Yeah.
But then we have Mycroft Holmes from the Robert Downey Jr. movies. That's Stephen Fry.
Yeah, that's true.
So...
and then we have, the War Doctor as the main villain.
Yes, so a little bit of everything in this, but if you're a fan of the either British or genre or what have you. The storyline, to me, felt fairly bog standard in certain ways. It's the fascist regime and the one guy who will stand up to them.
Just like any good dystopian novel, you've got to have a resistance to make the dystopian realize that they're dystopian.
Yeah, and in this case, it's a one-man resistance for most of the movie. But what I think I do like a lot about this is, rather than focus on V, we focus on Evie Hammond, which is Natalie Portman's character. We see basically everything from her point of view as she learns, as someone who in the movie was definitely part of the machine. She worked for the British television network, which is a pawn of the government, as it is in any good fascist state. And you have, in this film, she goes from being a cog in the machine to becoming Stockholm Syndrome is a really bad way
of
phrasing
really,
it, but it's pretty close.
Stockholm Syndrome in a lot of ways. It's as weird as this sounds, it's kind of like Beauty and the Beast. Only Beauty doesn't end up marrying the Beast and he turns into a handsome prince. Instead, she ends up, spoilers, she ends up putting him on a train where he gets blown up.
Yeah, the Viking funeral in a lot of ways.
But it is in a lot of ways Stockholm Syndrome. But you can't help but wonder how much of the Stockholm Syndrome, because they say in the movie that when her parents were taken, she was taken to pretty much a youth camp where they
it's sort of a re-education
reprogrammed her.
So I will say that I really did. I really enjoyed that twist and that point of view and that way of telling the story. One of the things we always talk about here on Denzicaster is the way these things look. Now, granted, this is probably not as Toku adjacent as we would typically get. This is more of an action movie than anything else, or an action suspense flick. But there are some really distinct visuals. This movie does thrive on its special effects in places because lots of things go boom.
Yes. A lot of fireworks.
Yeah.
I like fireworks.
The most impressive thing, aside from the sets, I think, get across a lot of the feel. To me, I got the feeling of like oppression is in the air every time you're in the conference room where the Supreme Chancellor appears on nothing more than a big screen TV that looms over his minions.
And they all have their little spotlights on them,
right.
and telling them what needs to be removed. Like, Overture of 1812 can no longer be played because it's been used by the terrorist V, and so on and so forth. All these things keep, getting removed and being added to censorship.
Right. And just the vibe. Cheapest set in the movie. It was a black room with some spotlights and a projector. But It was
at the BBC. They've only got, 6 sets?
Well,
let's be honest.
Warner Brothers produced it.
Brothers produced it, but they were using so many of the BBC actors. Let's be honest.
But to me, it speaks volumes. You had some very elaborate sets in the movie. The Shadow Gallery, which is effectively V's Batcave. That was
where all the banned books and art end up.
It was a very elaborate set that spoke to the freedom fighter and his mentality and things like that. You have the television studio, which you might not think of a TV studio as an elaborate set, but if a regular television studio is not going to look interesting on camera, so to make a TV studio look accurate but interesting is a bit of a challenge. And then you have the simplest set in the movie, which is the conference room, basically, of the bad guys, and it evokes just that sense of Chancellor's in control, everyone else is beneath him, that sense of oppression and it just loomed. And so I think that spoke very well. I like the visuals. You spoke about V's mask. Right. Now, there were 2 things I noticed here. One, the mask itself, if you've never seen a Guy Fawkes mask...
you can Google it.
Google it. It's out there. But
they sell them.
Yeah. It effectively looks a little bit kind of like the comedy and tragedy style mask. And the Guy Fawkes is basically the Joker with a mustache. I mean, it's got the absurdly, contorted smile and things like that. But it's a very jovial look if you see it by itself. Mm-hmm. What I think they played on in here really well to make it look menacing in places. Lighting was a huge deal in this movie.
Yes.
And the costuming for V, now granted, they're pulling this straight from David Lloyd's illustrations in the comic books. I mean, obviously, whenever you're dealing with a comic book character, there's an established aesthetic that you are going to have to hold to somewhat. But the broad-brimmed hat that you could move to certain angles, the way he carries himself, even on the cover, if you look at the cover here where the broad-brim hat, and I will hold this fairly close so you guys at home can see it, where the broad brim hat covers up the eyes of the costume, and it kind of adds this sense of mystery to him. That
a little bit of menace.
Yeah, that wouldn't necessarily be there normally. I like the costuming in the movie. And one thing I especially liked is all of the Guy Fawkes masks that he sends out. They purposely, I have to think, which obviously because they had to have a crap ton of them, especially for the end, the masks never look quite like his mask.
Right, they're all different. They're wider, they're narrower, they're longer, they're shorter. They
look cheaper.
They look, yeah.
But I think part of that's probably on purpose. You almost get the sense of the vibe I get, he didn't randomly buy the mask. I could believe somewhere in the backstory that he either bought one and modified it himself, or he built this one. And from some of the stuff you see of the character throughout the movie, I wouldn't be surprised if he did, because he has this arsenal to him. Batman was a legitimate inspiration of the character. I mean, if you look up some old Alan Moore interviews, he has a laundry list of things that don't typically look like they would belong on the same list, but that were inspiration for V. What did you think? What stood out to you visually in this flick?
See, for me, as usual, because I'm a book reader, I'm a musician, I love theater, and I just always love, for me, the settings. Just because, especially V's hideout, because I read banned books. You're going to tell me that I should not let a child or a high schooler read it because it's going to be bad for them, even though it is written for them. That's Hunger Games, that's Harry Potter. I will read it because it's been banned. And
her mom's a hippie, folks. Just saying.
Don't knock it.
She comes by it honest. I guess I should say my mother-in-law now.
Yeah, that's right, baby. You got her now, too. I am not alone.
No. Well, you and your 3 siblings.
I am not alone.
And the other.
Now you got it.
And the other in-law. So.
But anyways, when they show the Shadow Gallery for the first time, and you're kind of like, every book is haphazardly piled, and just for me, just imagining how much art and music, and heck, he's got a jukebox,
with 852 songs. I want that jukebox.
Hell yes!
Can
we put it in the living room?
Well, maybe. I don't care.
Yes, you find it, baby. You find it.
That'll be our first GoFundMe page on the ECS network, where we need y'all to fund.
I can think of a better.
So can I. But we need y'all to fund a jukebox. Actually, we need a camera first. But anyway, I love the sets. The movie has a very distinct, because you have a theater background, and the way it has a very distinct theatricality to it that you don't get out of a lot of, frankly, superhero movies, because at the end of the day, that is, to a point, what this is. Now, granted, from the research I've done, the original graphic novel was not a superhero movie or superhero base. You were supposed to have this level of ambiguity of not knowing whether or not V was simply an anarchist or whether he was a hero.
See, for me, V is not a hero, and V is not the villain. V is the anti-hero. No one ever believes it, but every good story needs an anti-hero. Neither good nor bad, doing both good and right and wrong decisions. There we go. I'm gonna get this. But still moving along, and in some ways, you need an anti-hero to create the hero, which for the movie is Evie.
I would argue, at least for me watching the movie, to me, V is very much the hero of the movie. Evie is the point of view character, and if there were to be another story, then she becomes the hero of the next story. To me, he is very much. They don't have that ambiguity in this. He has a motive for what he does. That motive is doing the right thing. But the wrong way. Yeah, you can do the right thing in extreme methods that are not necessarily kosher. I mean, Here's what I will say. Here's what I like.
We agree to disagree.
Well, that's part of what the show is. But the thing to me is, I've always said, and this partially comes from my background in the wrestling business, you have good guys and bad guys, but then you have heroes and villains. And these are not the same thing. A good guy simply does good things. The good guy is the guy that holds the door open at the supermarket for the little old lady. The hero is the guy who will do the right thing at great personal risk, who has some weakness that must be overcome. There's something where he will be put at great personal jeopardy in order to get the job done. He is very much that in this movie. If he's alone, they at one point say the terrorist organization known as V. It's one dude. There's no organization. But you have the entire United Kingdom looking for this guy at one point in the flick.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, the villain, a bad guy does bad things. A bad guy is the guy who cuts you off on the highway.
No, that's just a jackass.
He's a bad guy. Then you have...
Not the same thing!
No, but then a bad guy does bad things.
Both good guys and bad guys can be jackasses.
Sure.
Cutting someone off in traffic is a jackass act, not a bad thing.
No, it's a bad thing. Let me finish the analogy. This is every day. I love her, but it's every day. But she can say the same about me. So, you're going... A villain... She's going to be able to light into my ass when we watch some of these other movies. But a villain does entirely the wrong thing, but for the right reason. That, to me, is an actual villain. A villain, if you were to distill his motivation is right. The way he goes about it is wrong. And I can buy that to a point out of the Chancellor in this. Yes, he's mad with power, but part of it is the world has gone to shit. America's in its second civil war. Everything's gone to hell in a handbasket, and he wants England to be safe. Now, you get to the point where absolute power corrupts absolutely, but he's a villain. And also another thing I like about villains is when they have few, if any, redeeming qualities as characters, and God knows John Hurt had none in this movie. So, music. This is your big thing.
I love the music. I love the music in this. You have everything from what at the time would have been some modern music as well as classical music. I mean, it... Boom!
Yeah.
But you also had, some blues, a little bit of jazz. I mean, heck, they even brought back, the old black and white Count of Monte Cristo for this movie.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely gorgeous. Does not end like the book, but it is, still a classic.
That's something in common with the movie.
Yeah.
The last thing I personally want to praise, and this will be my final thoughts on the movie, and then whatever your final thoughts and anything you want to praise. I really have no negatives to the movie. I thought that I will have a feeling similar to the way Cana felt about Pacific Rim. This movie ran over 2 hours, and I'm fairly certain you could have trimmed some of that down. It drags in some places.
Yeah, it does.
But Hugo Weaving steals the show. He's the title character, and I have very rarely watched a movie where you never see the protagonist's face for the entire movie, and yet you're captivated by him. They give him, despite the fact that you never see him without the wig and the mask, they give him a sense of humor. When he's sword fighting in the Shadow Gallery with a suit of armor, basically play fighting while watching Count of Monte Cristo.
That sounds like fun. Can we do that one day?
If we ever buy a suit of armor, sure.
Okay.
And then...
Can we do a GoFundMe for that too?
Sure.
Okay.
So, you have You know, you have the sense of humor. You see the sensitive side and the sympathetic type character where he cooks breakfast for Natalie Portman, for Evie.
Food that, you know, he stole it.
He stole,
you know?
but still.
But that's sweet. You know, he would steal food for her.
Yeah. And then you see him as the badass, where he has his badass heroic scenes. The only thing the only scene of his I didn't like in the movie, honestly, was his introduction, because I think they kind of... They
got carried away.
They found the letter V in the dictionary and went buck wild, and basically just used every V word they could in one monologue. I thought that was a little much, but
the best thing about that whole monologue is when she looks at him and she goes, "Are you one of those crazy persons?"
Yeah,
and he goes, "Probably."
Yeah,
it kind of made up for the very long monologue where every other word was a V word.
But I will say this, he used everything. The mask, the cape, very dramatic movements, the lighting was great, the hat, every bit of V came across as a charismatic, captivating character, and then as someone who has been the nameless, faceless voice on a television show before, you have to get so much more emotion and such across with your voice when you can't rely on your face. And all the way down to the way he delivered the lines.
Yeah.
You get a sense, you can impose emotions onto the mask that aren't there because of Hugo Weaving's performance.
Yes.
So, that's my final thoughts anyway. What about you?
See, I love this movie. Granted, I haven't watched it for probably about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a little while. But, I mean, this is a movie that I enjoy watching, you know, because even though it is 10 years old, it's still relevant in a lot of ways. Because, I mean, not that we are living in a fascist state. I'm not saying that, and I'm not getting political. Not at all in this video. But, you know, a lot of things it makes you think, you know, when is it too far? You know.
Yeah. At what point do you hit the point of no return? How far is too far?
When do you, as someone who has rights, stop and say, this is enough, we've gone too far? You know, and at the end of the movie, I think the best part is the end of the movie, where all these people are in Guy Fawkes masks, and everybody starts taking off the masks, and you see people that we know are still alive, and then we suddenly start seeing people that have died, because the whole point was V was everybody. He was just doing what no one else would do. So, you know, I overall love this movie. Yeah, I mean, it's a cell phone down movie for me.
So, she's gone ahead and jumped to our thoughts at the end. So,
yes.
If you've watched our Pacific Rim video that we did, you know that my beautiful wife has come up with our rating system for our episodes together. That it's either a cell phone up, bad; cell phone down, good.
And occasionally there might be halves and three quarters.
Yeah. So no, I did not. I did not. I had my cell phone up at different points during the movie, but my cell phone was up basically because I was researching stuff for this episode. So no, this is. I would say this is a cell phone down flip too. So there you go, 2 cell phones down, which on our show means good.
Very good.
for V for Vendetta. So this one was Cana's pick after she picked and hated Pacific Rim. She didn't. I don't think you hated it.
I didn't hate it, but I'm just thinking about how I'm going to do a Cana cut edition. You know, I'm going to trim it. I'm going to trim the fat.
Funny thing, this was longer than Pac Rim. It was.
Yes, but it's better.
And it drug. But anywho,
it had its moments. That's when you close your eyes and just listen to the music.
Yeah. So the question now becomes, what do we watch next time?
And it's your pick.
And it's my pick, and I'm not going to. We're not going to take my beautiful wife here into the deep end of tokusatsu just yet. We're going to get there eventually. I have some old black and white classics lined up and waiting. But next time we are going to check out the second of the 3 movies, simply called The Fantastic Four. It's going to be the first commercially released Fantastic Four movie. So that would be the one starring Ewan Grufford, and
Jessica
Alba, Chris Evans in his first Marvel comic book movie appearance.
Because Flame On is just not as cool as being Captain America. Saying that,
I don't know. So, because I liked Chris Evans in the Fantastic Four movies.
I love Chris Evans, anyways.
Well, so we are
going. Those arms are awesome.
So we are going to check out the Fantastic Four when we next convene here. Not like Fan to Force stick or whatever with the goofy logo. Not the new one, but the one before. Though I do want to ask you people out there a question. So let us know in the comments to this video. I might have found a copy of the really terrible Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie. If you would like us to watch that on this show, specifically me and my wife, then please let us know in the comments below if you would like us to check that out. I found it. It looks terrible, but it's a Roger Corman movie, so I expect nothing less. So let us know, because that might be amusing. I guarantee you that will be 2 cell phones up, but hey, there might be some stuff we can laugh at.
So we can't pick it apart and just...
Oh, we can rip it to shreds. We're not... Okay. These people don't pay us to review their movies, so
they might one day.
Yeah, but they haven't yet, so we can talk shit about them all we want.
Okay.
So let us know if you want us to check that one out. Like I said, could be good for a laugh. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook. Facebook.com/Denzicaster. That's DENZICASTER. Denzicaster. It's in the title of this video. You'll see how to spell it, and you'll see it after the flip. Check us out there. Don't forget to check out ECS Network on Twitter. And don't forget to check out our Facebook first series, Denzi Blitz, where it's myself or Chris Brown by the time this is going up, I'm sure. America's favorite black man / our favorite penguin. Checking out different tokusatsu television series at a rapid fire pace, just kind of marathoning through them. Don't forget to check that out. And we will have some of our regularly scheduled Denzicaster, I'm sure, coming up next episode. But until then, I'm Mike.
And I'm Cana.
And we'll see you next time on Electric City Sentai Denzicaster.